Hello, everyone. So this is our first webinar. Bear with me here because it's our first webinar. We're trying to do something new, connecting with our small business network through this platform. I would like to welcome everyone who is able to join us, and also allow me to introduce, first of all, Tarek Bilgaith with us here today.
Thank you.
Tarek, thank you very much for helping us. He's from RZ Consulting. And RZ Consulting does everything digital, basically, any of your digital needs and online needs. More than ever, we need people
We're
like
here
Eric.
to
So
help.
thank you very much for helping
You're
us.
welcome. It's my
Uh,
pleasure.
and I'm like many of the small business owners or even the community members who are new to the details of the digital world. Like we can probably use, as Eric had mentioned, passively Zoom and Eventbrite, but we don't know the details of it when it comes to really hosting webinars, huge webinars with many businesses and members to join us. So I'm very grateful to your help in introducing me to this online world. And I would love to introduce my dear friend, Eric Sonego, who is also on the board of directors with us at the Kanata Carleton Small Business Network. Eric has over 30 years of experience as an accountant. He had worked also for the government at BDC. He has so many credentials, I can't even remember all of them. And I will let him introduce himself. He'll do a better job than me. But because of his expertise and his care for the community, we are very grateful that he agreed to join us today to try to give some of the tips that he knows more than anyone about financial tips for small business owners, as well as tax tips and what's going on, just to give us a glimpse of every day things have been changing so fast with COVID-19. It's sometimes hard to keep track of all the changes and what is available there for owners, for business owners and as employers. So Eric, I leave the floor to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, if you'd like to start with introducing more yourself and then what's the topic, what you like to
Well,
focus on. Thank you.
thank you, Ruba. I think you did a good job introducing myself. I don't think I need to add anything else. The uh, the uh, uh, agenda for today is what I would call a fluid agenda, in that the government is faster than I am at putting things on paper sometimes, the things that they're coming up with. So it becomes like tomorrow, this session could be totally different after the prime minister speaks and decides to say other stuff, right? So this is just the last word, not the end word of what is happening with the business programs and the employee programs. The agenda today it's slide number 2 agenda.
Okay.
The agenda today will talk about for everybody, not just for people who are unemployed or who are caught with the trends of the virus. We'll deal with, first of all, tax extension that applies to everybody, payment extension. Other payments and filings extensions that are not so well known. Because I'm an accountant and I do a lot of stuff in tax court, I also have to talk about the ceasing of CRA auditing procedures. And one of the other things that they have now that is not that common or not that well known among the public is something called the liaison officer. And the liaison officer at CRA is the person that actually can, now they do it on the phone because they cannot visit you, but they could actually walk with you through all of these things, on the phone. If you feel that it's beyond your capabilities, or you feel that it's too much information for you to deal at one time, you can go to their payroll or liaison officer, and they will send you information. They will talk to you on the phone. They will do all of that kind of stuff to help you go to a certain place. Now, if we did not have the virus, the liaison officer would come to see you and bring you that information. This is good for some people. Some people, on the other hand, don't want to see CRA anywhere near their place, so that might not be very good for them. Then we will talk about payroll subsidies. You can break what the government does into two things: individuals and business. The individuals are usually what we call payroll subsidies. In other words, subsidizing the cost of living of an individual. In business, we have the employer payroll subsidy point of view and the business incentives and credits that have come out in the last few days. So first of all, tax payment extension. This changes almost daily. If you remember, the first extension they gave was for filing your income taxes, and that extension was um, May 1st. So the city of Ottawa today said that they don't see anything happening before June 30th, and that all of the people will have to stay home. All of the people will have to deal with the same situation we're dealing today. So I would expect that the tax filing deadline is going to be extended beyond May the 1st. And I would expect that the business filing deadline will also be extended beyond June 15th. But those things have not come out yet, and the government doesn't like to make those extensions until the very last minute. So somewhere around May 15th, they will stand up and say, oh, we're extending it to June 15th or to June 30th. And that's the extension of just personal taxes. The business taxes and the business reporting, a lot of it has been extended to September 2020. And that means if you owe money, they're not going to call you till September. If you have to file HST returns, you don't have to file them till September. All of those things ending in September. If this pandemic takes more energy than it's taking now, and we go into July, you can expect that September deadline to be extended as well. So I wish I could tell you dates about when you have to file stuff, but those dates are changing almost on a weekly basis, and it will not. I would say by July we will know where the dates for filing everything will be. Slide number 3. 3. That's keep going. That's next one. Now they have done a lot of extension on income tax, but they have said almost nothing on payroll, GST, and HST accounts. And if you go to the CRA website, you will see that GST, HST accounts filings have not been changed. The payment and the collection of that, yes, they're extending, but the actual filing of reports, you have to file them on date. So GST returns that are the people who file GST monthly have to still continue doing it monthly. People who do it quarterly still have to do it quarterly. Payroll remittances, even if you have no payroll, you still will have to file the zero payroll amount remittance that the government requires, unless you have dealt with your employees through an ROE. An ROE is a step that a business takes to disassociate themselves from the employee. In other words, when you give an ROE to somebody, you are saying to them, you are out of my payroll, and you might be recalled or not recalled. Whereas, most layoffs carry an ROE with them. So if you have issued ROEs, then you don't have to submit payroll reports. Next slide. CRA audit activity. Now, this is predicated by the fact that the auditor has to stay home. So because the auditor has to stay home, they are not doing any audits, of course, and also predicated by the fact that you cannot visit anybody under the health department's ruling. So there is no auditing going on by CRA right now. You know, in the summer they tend not to audit. So I can't see anybody being audited by CRA until maybe September, October of next year, or this year rather, and that will mean that they will go after probably the winnable cases as opposed to the big cases. One of the things they might audit would be people that are collecting the $2,000 a month to make sure that they don't have any other employment. So you might see them be pretty active. One of the problems that I see happening 2 or 3 years down the road is that all of this money that the government is spending will have to be repaid somewhere. And that will be through either more auditing, more mercenary type of auditing, or through increasing taxations or decreasing services. One of those three, a combination of those three will happen in two years from now, when the coffers have to be replenished. Next slide. This is just a propaganda slide for the Canada Revenue Agency, but it's true. It's true propaganda. They do provide a good service if you go through the liaison officer. There's a big difference between the liaison officer and the person that answers the phone when you called 1-800-959-8281. That person that answers the phone may not know that much tax, but the liaison officer is very knowledgeable on the Tax Act and very knowledgeable on payroll and GST and all of those kinds of stuff. And it will answer any questions you have and give you any type of expertise that you might need from them. And it might even show you how to set up your books in a way necessary to fulfill your tax obligations with the CRA. Next slide. Payroll subsidies. Now, these are subsidies that are paid to employers who have employees who are still working with them. And this the first one applies to anybody, provided you have a certain level of payroll. In other words, if you have an employee that works part-time and makes $10 an hour, and is related to you, and that's all you have, you might not fit any of this criteria. But most people fit the criteria for the 10% subsidy, and that will apply to almost anybody. And that these subsidies are based on the fact of what you remit to the government. So you pay your employee the same you would normally, but when you do the remittance to the government, you take 10% out of that remittance, and you don't give it to the government. The next subsidy that we have is for businesses that have a larger payroll and can show a decrease in activity in sales from March to June or May. All right, so from a period of time. So that decrease in sales, that will predicate the fact that you are working with people who are not as efficient or as effective. And from that point of view, the businesses will be able to keep the employees and get 3/4 of their payroll subsidized by the government, which is a pretty good deal. Now, you have to have a larger payroll than the 10% people, and you have to be a more, I would say you would have to be a businesses that is probably payroll heavy. In other words, a restaurant which has all kinds of employees, front of the restaurant, bar and kitchen, all of that kind of stuff. This would apply to them quite well. Now, I see that in the chat line there's some questions. I will address those questions when I'm finished. The other stuff that we have is the loan program. And the loan program is a loan that the government has, again, that applies for almost anybody in business who has working capital deficiencies because of a decrease in sales or a marginal decrease in sales. It doesn't have to be that you are out of business or you're closed. Your sales are not as much as they used to be. Um, and if you're a very small business, you can qualify for a $40,000 loan, of which 10,000 is not repayable. In other words, you borrow 40 and you pay back 30, and supposedly it's interest free, and it's done through the BDC and through the BDC in conjunction with the banks, or through the Export Development Corporation if you are selling overseas. And there's bigger subsidies of I think it's $75,000 now that are for businesses that have a larger payroll and still need working capital. So those are the two things that are hitting businesses. Now, before I take questions, the government, when it came up with these things, realized that there were unintended consequences. So by giving people $2,000 a month and also allowing other people to collect unemployment insurance claims are less than $2,000 a month. So the government, as of today, is saying that anybody who is saying that those unemployment insurance claims are going to go to the CRA, who's going to bump up everything to $2,000 a month. And that's a bit of a confusion. The other confusion there is about the phone number that there is in the CRA website for this thing, and it's impossible to join them. But if you do if you apply to these things on the web, it's much faster. And you don't need to wait for them to give you the okay to go through, because usually when you apply to CRA for anything, you have to have something called My Account. And if you have My Account, it takes 7 to 10 days to get the password from them so that you could log into your account. So now if you go and answer those 3 questions, you automatically go into My Account, and you can file for either the business subsidies or the personal subsidies. Now, a lot of my clients are incorporated companies that the owner is a worker in the company, and at this point they have not said that employment is not valid. They said if it's T4, then it's through payroll, we cover it. So that's where we are right now, and maybe they'll fine tune it as we go. Maybe we clean up a little bit as we go, and we decide to become more. We scope the help better, but the government is having to think twice about some of these things. You can close your borders and say no people can come in, but then the farming community says, well, what about those foreign workers that come to help us? So today they had to come up with a new set of criteria for allowing farm workers in. So as I told you in the beginning, there is a lot of changes that happen because of what they did first is not working well, and they have to fine tune it, and then other people start complaining, and other things get changed. So I would not want to be in government today, because I think that they're working their butts off, and they are not as fast as the public moves, and that sometimes creates a problem. Anyways, in conclusion, we can say that tax-wise there will be the payment of tax has been extended. and the payment of other reporting is extended. We can also say that we can go on summer vacation without worrying too much about being audited by CRA. And we can also say that if we have if we have questions, they will either guide us through the phone, or if we're able to visit each other, they will send someone to help you deal with these things, and that's called the liaison officer. And for the people who are in business and who have workers, there's been payroll subsidies and business credit subsidies to help both the running of the business and the stability of the business. Now I can take questions.
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for this presentation. Okay, so we can start with the first question that I have here for you.
Yes.
Question number 2 on the 10% subsidy.
Yes.
Started March 18. So do we have to prorate that?
Yes. It's from March 18th forward. So if someone worked for you on March 12th, that will not be part of the subsidy.
Okay. And any other question or any need for follow-up? If the person who asked the question would like to follow up with another question, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself, I believe, if you have a question.
All right, thanks so much. I think so thanks for that, Eric. I guess so from March 18th onwards, so for the month of April and May, you could do 100% of the actual payroll amount, but for March it's only for the 12 days, and
That's
for June
right.
it's 19 days only.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's only, March 18th is not going to change because that's in the past. But the future, the future, that might change. That they may extend that future.
Okay, and then so the money that you get to keep back as a subsidy, it'll get taxed accordingly, right? Towards the year end.
Yes, because that 10% that you're keeping, you have to declare it as income.
Okay.
And they were very, very specific about that. That was the first question that we accountants asked them. What about the 10%? Who is it taxable? And I said, like a chorus, they went, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any other question? Let me check. Okay, please, guys, don't be shy. If anyone has questions, go ahead.
Well,
Yes.
I have one.
Yes.
This is Tarek here.
Yes, Tarek from RZ Consults.
Yeah, actually talking about the businesses, because Eric, and thank you, you explained it very well, but I'm still not familiar with the incorporation, and I'm running now a partnership business.
Yes.
We mainly provide these services and digital services, etc.
Yes.
And in 2019, we unfortunately didn't have any sales. So I need to file the returns for the partnership, right? For
Right.
2020. I still have until I think June 30th, though I only made expenses. I mean, we're just like
a partnership right now is like a proprietorship. It still has a June 15th deadline. They have not extended it.
Okay, so it's a June 15, but I need to file. I need to file the because I was in the spending mode. I didn't make any sales or projects or whatsoever. We were in the establishment phases at that time.
Right.
So we still need, because I had a chat with the CRA agent, and they told me even though you didn't make the sales in 2019, these 3 months after incorporating the partnership, you still need to file the nil.
Yes. Now, is your partnership incorporated or not?
Well, meaning, I mean, I have a GST, HST.
Right. Meaning, do you have shares in the company, or do you have a partnership agreement?
We are like 50-50 partnership, myself and my wife, my partner.
Right.
So what's the next steps that we need to do?
Well, the next step is once the business starts being more active, from a sales point of view, you might think about incorporating,
Okay.
because that allows you to actually talk to banks more seriously. It fits government programming better. Although these things that I talked about today applies to everybody, not just corporations. But it's easier to manage an incorporated business.
Okay, so here, since we are still in the pre-sales and business development phase, and we didn't start into the sales phase, it's still not mandatory. But once we will start talking about serious projects and consultations, I think it's better to think more of like incorporating this partnership. Maybe we can talk about this offline if you.
Yes. Just to continue that. Just to continue that for a minute, the rule of thumb is when you're spending money, when you start in business and you're spending money, it might be better to stay not incorporated, because you can take all of that expenses, file a business return with a loss, and claim it against your other personal income.
Okay.
And as soon as you start making money, you would incorporate, because it no longer, you now have to pay tax on it. The corporate tax is lower.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe you will explain it to me maybe in offline, but let's keep the floor to other people maybe who want to ask questions.
And we are going to have a webinar specifically with our lawyer and advisor. His name is Gerard Power, and we invited him to answer these type of questions as well. So we're going to host a webinar. Any other questions?
Just for information as well, we have a webinar next week regarding anything related to cloud accounting for small businesses.
Sorry, we are hearing some noise in the background. Could somebody who is not on mute?
I think I'll mute all the, now should be okay.
Okay.
Right. So just a reminder to everyone that we are holding also another webinar about cloud accounting. I mean, when people need to stay home and in confinement and quarantine, it's a webinar, but it's a kind of training, because there's a lot of learnings out of that, how to make your accounting while online, using some modern tools and automation of your accounting. And we'll have a special guest that will speak more about that. Thank you. Just
Eric.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Going twice. Don't be shy, guys. Eric is just to answer.
Please.
It's Mary here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question about sole proprietorships. And as far as I've seen, looking at what the government is offering, it's basically payroll subsidies. But I don't have employee with it, and I know other sole proprietors that don't have employees. I do hire contractors, virtual assistants, right? So I'm not just asking for myself, but I'm also asking for other people I know that are in business in a similar situation where you don't have employees. So but also suffer loss of income. So is there anything that the government is offering, or we just lost?
Yes. If you I didn't want to cut you off, but and I'm sorry if I cut you off. The subsidies that apply to employees are also being extended to self-employed people. So the $2,000 a month you can apply to if you're a self-employed person, and it actually is pretty easy to do. And usually the $2,000 are in your bank in 3 to 5 days. So it's pretty easy, and it almost I did it for a client today, and it only asked 3 questions that had nothing to do with the business, just security questions. And then it took us right into the COVID thing, and it said, okay, in 3 days you're going to have your money in the bank, $2,000. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty good deal.
So what do you need to qualify for that then?
You need to be self-employed, and you need to have had a decrease in business. Like the client we did today was someone who runs a beauty salon, right?
Okay.
And beauty salons are closed by law, so she's not getting any money. So she wants to get $2,000. If you are working and you are self-employed and you are making less money because of the virus, you can also apply for it.
Okay. And is it prorated?
No, $2,000 is $2,000.
Okay. And will they ask that back? Is it a loan or is it?
The government never gives.
No, I know.
All right. Yes, they will send you a T4A at the end of the year.
Okay.
But it's not bad, you know.
I think this is very informative question and answer, because most people did not know that it applies to themselves. They thought it was about employees that they have working.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for asking that question, and thank you, Eric, for the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
You're welcome.
Or any other question, or would you like to write your questions to us? If you like to just write it here in the chat and we can ask it for you. Okay, well, if you have missed any parts of this webinar, it is recorded and we will post it on our social media, so you can find it afterwards. And
if you show my last slide, there's my telephone number and address.
that's exactly what I was going to say. If there are any other questions, you can always reach Eric Sunaiga, and he is here, a local as well, a local accountant in Kanata. Well, with that, we come to the end of our webinars. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
I was a bit nervous to host this first one.
You did a good job.
I'm glad that Tarek is with us to handle the slide and all the digital work. Tarek Bilgate from RZ Consulting, thank you very much for your help with this transformation.
My pleasure.
And, guiding us through the digital world. And thank you so much, Eric, for this informative.
You're more than welcome.
Giving us your time. I know how busy it is right now for you as an accountant. And
well, this way my wife makes dinner and not me.
Good excuse. That's what I told my husband as well. I'm like, I have a webinar.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone who joined us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.